Hello, friends. This is Brian Foreman with Campbell University Center for Church and Community, and I am honored to be joined today by the Reverend Josh Owen, who is the Associate Minister for Community and Faith Development. I even had it written down and still screwed it up, Josh. You might note, you might note by the diplomas in the background that not only is he a camel, but you describe yourself as a what?
That would be a two-hump camel.
All right, nice. Is that a dromedary?
Do what now?
Is that a dromedary? Is that a two-hump camel?
What? A dromedary?
Dromedary. Never mind. We'll just keep moving. Over Josh's other shoulder, you'll see that that's a football jersey in the background, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Tight end?
Yep.
All right. So there are all kinds of things that Josh is involved in. Not only is he on staff at First Baptist Church of Monroe, he is also teaches some classes at Wingate University in their religion department, as well as not quite a little known fact, but he's also a licensed football referee. So when you go out on a Friday night and you're yelling at somebody, you might find yourself yelling at Josh Owens sometimes. So be nice to him.
Yeah, that's it.
Josh, thanks for being here, man. So tell me, what's good?
Even in the midst of all this we find ourselves in right now, Brian, I think there's a lot that we can acknowledge as good. On a personal note, I'm enjoying the time being home with my wife. We just celebrated 4 years of marriage last week, and our 1.5-year-old daughter, Quinn. In the normal day, we don't get to see each other maybe as much as we'd like to, but this has found us doing a lot more sitting outside in our patio, playing in the backyard, going for walks in the afternoon, meals together at home, things that we would do, but not with a high level of frequency. So I am really treasuring those moments. But then I think about our church too, and how all of this has really pushed us to kind of reevaluate the way we do church or the way we think about church. I think it's provided us an opportunity to see that we are capable of doing a lot more than we thought we could or were able to. And so pressure and challenge has a way of kind of bringing out the best in people. And I am encouraged by the character that not only my church members here at First Baptist Monroe are demonstrating, but really what the church globally is doing and responding to the challenges of this moment and how the cream is rising to the crop, so to speak. So I'm really encouraged by all of those things.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to think about all of the ways that we typically have said, and you having foot in higher education and in a university setting, those are two institutions that are pretty good at saying we can't do this, and suddenly we find ourselves having to say, oh, we have to do this, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of the big adjustments you guys have had to make?
I mean, as far as our church? Yeah, so obviously the major one is not meeting in person. And so for our congregation, we're a kind of a historical, traditional downtown county seat Baptist church. Our congregation certainly leans on the older senior adult demographic, and that's a large makeup of our congregation. And so there are a lot of challenges as a concern around them being able to gather in person, but in a lot of ways, our church was comfortable in what we did, and so we did not have streaming capabilities or video aspects that were part of our ministry, and so we had to learn those things, or really kind of construct the plane as we were flying it, so to speak, and learn those things on the fly. So those have been some of the biggest challenges that we have found ourselves trying to shift from ways that we were always comfortable doing things to now how do we respond and maintain who we are and maintain the community that we so value and treasure, but how do we do that in light of the requirements of social and physical distancing and things like that. And so not only the gathering together as community, but how do we be community to other people and serving other people and meeting the needs. There's still that desire within our folks, and so the adjustments to how do we do that, and recognizing that we don't necessarily always have to be physically present to be able to serve others. There's different ways that we can do that. And so those have been some of the challenges that I've seen our congregants face, but then also the challenge to our ministry staff is how do we come alongside our congregants to help facilitate that growth and that change. So I think we chatted briefly before we started recording about how for the first few weeks, I found myself educating so many of my congregants on how to use a platform like Zoom, or how to engage with a Facebook Live video. And those seemed overwhelming in the initial weeks, both to me trying to educate as well as to our congregants trying to adapt to those things. But it's been beautiful to see over the weeks how they've become more comfortable, and how they've become more skilled with those different features, and how they continue to grow and what those things can do, and how they still maintain community in the midst of those things.
So I want to come back to the technology piece of this, but I'm also interested in, you mentioned their thirst to continue to do ministry and to reach out and care for those in the community. Do you have any examples of how you guys have been able to continue to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that jumps off is we have several folks in our church that are gifted artisans. And we have a So Faithful Quilters Ministry, which is a group of folks who get together once a month, and they take over our Family Life Center and produce some amazing quilts and some other artisan craft things. And we have some other groups within the church who are all different gifts in that kind of mindset, so to speak. And many of ours, I've got some examples right here. Many of our folks have produced masks, handmade masks. I've got one couple in our church that's already produced over 1,000 handmade masks, just themselves, not to mention the others in the church who have done the same. And they've donated those to our staff, to anyone in the church who wants them. They've donated them to the hospital here in Monroe, just a few blocks down. So they made those available to our healthcare workers here in the community. Anybody, anywhere that needs them, they'll make them and send them. And so I have been, and let's be honest, unfortunately, that particular kind of ministry is something that's easily overlooked in the normal day-to-day aspects of the church. I mean, we may not give enough attention to it as we should. But what's been great about at least that particular ministry is that they are literally doing life-saving work in many ways when they do that thing now. And so it's been really cool to see how they have been able to take something that's a passion and a joy and a love for them and really make an impact and provide for the needs of our community, our church community, and our community around us. And so that's been really neat to see different things like that. We have some community partners here in Monroe that we've been able to really join lock arms with, one being the community shelter of Union County, which is located here downtown, just a few blocks from us. They're a residential shelter, but they also serve hundreds of meals a day. And so our youth group here has a standing partnership where we provide a meal once a month. And so we've continued to maintain that in different ways. Our Board of Missions here continues to provide meals from time to time at the shelter, because the shelter serves 3 meals a day no matter what. And so we've been partnering with them. We partner with another organization called Heart for Monroe, which is kind of a combined joint effort between churches and groups here in downtown Monroe to serve people who are at home or senior adults in a local housing community here, different things like that. Our folks have been intentional about what can we do and how can we serve, and we have found that partnering is the best way to do that. And so I've been really grateful to see our folks doing that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the piece about the folks making the mask and it being a type of ministry that's often overlooked. So often we think about ministry has to fit in certain boxes, right? And it's worship ministry, or it's pastoral ministry, or it's this or that, or so on and so forth. But man, just something as simple as making masks and distributing them, that's ministry. It's people's giftedness being put into kingdom work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's awesome that you would highlight those folks, and to think about sewing over 1,000 masks, that just makes my hands hurt thinking about it.
They are awesome at it though. These stack right here actually are a stack of children's masks that they made for the children in our church and for me to distribute. So it's they just think of everything and everyone. So it's really cool how they do that.
That's awesome.
Tirelessly. So
the piece about the community that I wanted to come back to though was so you work with all ages in the church. You talk about developing community, you're talking about educating your senior adults. You also work with youth and children. How are you all thinking about their interaction as if and when things start to open back up, what does that start to look like for you guys?
Right. Yeah. We actually just had a conversation about that this morning in a staff meeting. Um, you know, looking at different options of, do we meet outside? I mean, we have a fairly large grass area out in a courtyard here. Do we meet there? Do we try to do something in cars in our parking lot? Do we forego that, knowing that those are limited gatherings, and so it's not necessarily what we want our in-person gatherings to be, all those different challenges. So it's going to be kind of what I think we will do. It'll be what our people think is best. We're going to let them lead in terms of what they need and what they feel comfortable doing. Again, as I said earlier, we're a very senior adult heavy church, but we do have several young families with children, and that group, wife and I are part of as a small group, is important and meaningful as well. And so trying to balance the different needs and dynamics of those different groups, so it's very diverse, kind of polar opposites and needs and ways that they operate, is a challenge, but we're going to let our people kind of be the ones who kind of say, this is what we feel comfortable with, this is what we feel ready for. And as a staff, we're in no rush to push anything. We certainly want to maintain that community and get back together as soon as we can, but we also don't want to put people in compromising positions or force people into doing something that they're not comfortable with. So we're going to let our people kind of be the ones who guide us about what is best and what is needed. As we have found, we've been able to foster good community even in virtual sense, particularly as our folks have continued to equip themselves with all the various resources that these provide. And so I think that, at least for the vast majority of our folks, that immediate desire to get back in person has kind of slowed down just a little bit, realizing that there's some benefit to what we're doing virtually, and that it may take longer than we would have originally thought to get back together in person.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious about these. You've got your senior adults and that population in the church. You've got young people in the church, and then you were working with college students when all this went down, right?
Yeah.
How about? And we didn't talk about it. I should have prepped you with a question like this, but I hadn't thought about it, so my apologies. But what are you seeing from a mental health perspective of those different age groups? Have you seen anything?
Yeah. No, I definitely have. One of the first points that comes out to me is with my college students at Wingate, and also the college students here who are part of our church. This really hit me very significantly. One of the first few weeks of online instruction I was doing, I didn't require in-person meeting to the lectures. I would record them and make them available to the students online, but I had a fair amount of my students from my sections who would attend the live meetings. And one particular, either the second or third week in, I noticed on one of the videos that one of my students was in a car riding. She was not driving, thankfully, but she was riding. And she was actually coming to campus to unload her dorm room. And I was half joking with her, and I told her, I said, Jessica, I appreciate your commitment to being in class today, but if you're on the road traveling, you really didn't need to be doing this. And I don't think she thought I was joking. She, in a very serious tone, she said, you know what, this is one of the only classes that I have that meets live, and this is likely going to be the only social interaction I have this week, so I didn't want to miss seeing all of you. And that hit me very poignantly, to realize that this dramatic shift that we all experienced, proverbial rug being swept out from under our feet, none of us were ready for it, and so we had not prepped for it. And so to lose so many of those things that we value really overnight is tough. For college students, it's that interaction with their peers and the opportunity to be independent and develop your own sense of personhood away from your home and your family, have to be immediately thrust back into home. Separate from those things is difficult for our senior adults. I'm seeing that feeling of what was initially fear, but now it's an increasing amount of already. Senior adults often feel like there's so many things they can't do already, and so you compound that by saying, okay, now don't leave your house. Well, then what can I do? I had a conversation with a congregant a few weeks ago when we were trying to figure out things that we could do for our healthcare workers at the hospital, and she called me and said, hey, I can't make masks, I can't do anything like that. And I said, well, hey, can you write thank you cards? And she physically said, I don't know that I could write that many. She said, but I can provide cards for somebody else to write. And I said, that's absolutely great. And so right here on my desk, she brought by the other day, or a group of cards. And when she dropped them off, she said, that makes me feel so relieved to know that I can do something. And so, finding those little moments where we could help people see things maybe that they didn't see before, or maybe seeing value in things that they maybe didn't see value in, and kind of giving some importance to that, I think is important for all of our people. And so those are just some of the mental health things that I have noticed in some various age groups. Our kids seem to be pretty resilient, but we're holding on pretty good. And then when the announcement came that school was going to be closed, that hit them pretty hard. So some of my college students here have come home and things like that. And so, with the loss of graduations and those things, it's tough. So many students haven't developed that sense of the greater good of, I'm losing something that I value now for the sake of something later on. And so that's a learning process. So each age group is experiencing some kind of loss or strain at different ways that affects who they are in that life stage. And so it's important that we recognize that, and we provide a space to kind of acknowledge that and put that out in the open. And then when we do that, we can move on and find ways to process it and move forward.
Yeah, an important piece of all that, right? So your thumb is exactly on top of college students. I have my oldest just finished junior year and said those very words. I've lost my independence. Mm-hmm. I've lost my sense of my community, and I've lost my autonomy. No matter how much we as parents try to foster that, he's right. So there's some really unique challenges there, and I love the idea of helping people find purpose in the midst of all of this. We can't make sense of it. We can't fix it. We feel helpless in a lot of ways, and so whether it be sitting at home or sitting in our office or whatever the case may be, to help people find purpose in ways that they can be active in moving forward, in ministering to others, whether it be from making masks to buying cards to making donations to whatever ministry they can support. It's pretty phenomenal. But the mental health of our congregants is something I don't know that we always take as seriously as we should. So I think you're providing some really wise counsel to them to help them find sense of purpose. So well done, sir. Well, I am watching our clock here, and we want to make sure that I honor your time and what I asked of you. But I am curious if you have one last word of encouragement or wisdom or thought that needs to be shared. I mean, that's a big question because you have so much wisdom to share. So, but it's something that maybe you've picked up on or been reflecting on through the course of the last few weeks that maybe somebody needs to hear.
I'm looking up because there's a sign that I keep on my wall over here, and it's a reminder to me, as someone who wrestles with change or struggles with change, and a need to fix things. I'm a 1 on the Enneagram, so that idea of control and perfectionism is something that is really core to who I am. And I know for me personally, and when this all began, and the reality set in that it was not going to be a couple week kind of thing. It's all right. I'm scrambling to feel like I want to do all these things for our church. I want to make these changes. I want to get us online. I want to get our small groups meeting in Zoom. We got to have high quality worship, whatever, all those different demands that felt like I needed to do all at one time. And the reality is you just can't. And so the sign that I have up here is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It was from Abraham Lincoln. And it is, the great thing about change is that it comes one day at a time. Mm. And I think as churches, if we look at the magnitude of what is before us, and we look at it as if it's something that we have to deal with all at one time, we are going to be overwhelmed with it. But if we take that one day at a time approach, learn something new each day, identify a need each day, hear about a new way of doing something, over time, that large challenge begins to be able to be taken off at chunks and pieces, manageable chunks and pieces. And I may not be able to solve everything today, but I might be able to help that one church member find a way to make a meaningful contribution. And so for me, that's been a helpful reminder that however long this process is going to take, it's going to come at us one day at a time. And if we take it one day at a time, we will be stronger for it, and we will be able to meet the needs of our community and our congregants. And this challenge that seems just out of this world, just a magnitude beyond comprehension, if we take it one day at a time, we will do the work God needs us to do, and God can look at that work and say, well done. That's good work. So that's what's kept me going, and hopefully that can be an encouragement to somebody today as well.
Yeah, that's a real good word. We can only control so much, and advancing one thing a little at a time, one day at a time, is maybe all that we can do and all that we need to do. So, yeah. Josh, thanks for your time so much. I appreciate it. I respect the work that you're doing, and know that it's good work there in your church and community. So thanks again for spending some time with us.
Happy to do it, Brian. Thanks so much, man. It was great.